Hello, students, everybody out there. Welcome to this session. So this happens to be the 5th session of the Power Reading series. And thank you so much for your support. I'm glad that you people are liking it and benefiting from it. Okay, so today's session happens to be a very, very important one. Tones and styles of a passage. And trust me, students are really anxious about this topic and always inquisitive to learn. So let's make the most of this session. Okay. Just give me a minute so that I can interact with you as well. Trying to reach out to your messages. Okay. Fine. Fine, class, let's begin. I still can't find myself. Okay. Chaliye, theek hai. So what are we doing? We're doing tones today, as I've already told you. Okay. So the first thing that I want to tell you is the difference between tones and styles. Secondly, I will tell you one thing, that these terms are being used quite interchangeably. However, there's a subtle difference between them. Keep that in mind. So I would like to tell you firstly, what are the styles of the passage? Secondly, we will move over to the tones. Okay, so stay tuned. I hope my slides are visible. Fine. So what is the style of a passage? Let's understand the difference between them. See, styles basically refer to the way in which a writer expresses himself, the way in which he has organized the passage. That is actually the style of the passage. And it is distinct from tone, because the tone is the attitude or the emotion of the author towards the subject of the passage. So since both of these are interconnected, interrelated, because in many situations, the style governs the tone of the passage. Okay, so that is why there is some confusion about them. All right, but let's make it very sorted today. So as I've told you, the way in which the author frames his passage, the way in which he writes or organizes, okay, that is the style. And of course, it varies as per the purpose of the author or the audience to which he's writing, or even the contents and the entire background of the passage. Okay, so let's take up some common and very major, very important writing styles. And that's one thing I want to tell you. With regard to tones, I've seen people teaching tones like, they come up with a long list of synonyms. I understand that tones is about so many words. It's about, you understand a tone, but then there are so many synonyms of that particular word. So you need to know the entire list. I completely agree with it. However, a more rudimentary function here is that the student should be able to understand the concept. That how exactly is he supposed to pick up the tone? How is he supposed to figure out the style? So I think that's a bigger challenge. So I am going to make a very practice-oriented session. There are going to be a lot of practice questions. So you have to stay alert till the end. One by one, we shall take all the important styles. I would like to reiterate, you can even call them tones as such. It is called a descriptive tone, but essentially it's a style of writing. Okay? So please go through these styles as I've given. Just a second. ठीक है. Fine. So we here have to take up the analytical style first, but of course, I would like to take it up in no set order. So what are the major tones here? Analytical, descriptive, narrative, argumentative, critical, and expository. Cynical is also a very major tone. Tones एक class में cover नहीं हो पाएगा. We shall be taking up more sessions, at least one more session, I promise you. Rest, it depends. So these are the major styles. Let's understand them one by one. Number one, the argumentative style or the persuasive style. You can even call it persuasive, but essentially it is called the argumentative style. What exactly it is? Here, the author presents a lot of arguments about what? So please understand the structure of such a passage. What happens is here, the author has a position or a viewpoint. Okay. And then he presents a lot of justifications, a lot of logical reasons supporting that viewpoint. That's essentially the structure. Sometimes the author himself might present some counter arguments also. Why does he do that? Okay, because he knows that, there would be critics. Fine. And so those critics would be coming up with those counter arguments. So he want to then, convince the reader. He would rebut or he would challenge all the counter arguments, and thereby he would try his best to prove that his viewpoint is most logical. So the entire passage is written in a very cogent way, in a very convincing way. So I hope the structure is very clear. यहाँ पे author का एक viewpoint होता है, और author उस viewpoint को support करने के लिए बहुत सारे logical reasons दे रहा होता है, आपको evidences provide कर रहा होता है, justifications दे रहा होता है. So this is essentially the structure of an argumentative passage. In fact, एक चीज आपको मैं बताना चाहूंगी class. In your real life, you will find some writings which are essentially or majorly argumentative in nature. For example, the opinion editorials, or in general, the editorials in a newspaper. Sometimes even advertisements, because they are convincing you or persuading you, they're trying to prove you that that particular product is something that you must buy. Okay, and they give you all reasons to convince you. So this also can be an example of argumentative writing. And yes, letters of recommendation whenever you write to a university. Okay, or if I am recommending one of my students in a top global university, I'm recommending the student why. I will give logical reasons supporting that yes, he's the suitable candidate that you're looking for. Okay, so I hope with all the examples, you've understood the argumentative style of writing. Okay, let's move over to another one. Hello, all of you out there. Once again, okay. Fine. So I hope you are with me and I hope you all are following. Great to see you all. Chaliye, okay. So very soon we'll be taking up some questions. Okay. So till then you have to patiently listen to me and understand. All right. Chaliye, okay. Expository. इसी साल CLAT में ये tone आई, where this was not just one of the answer choices, but in fact, this was the right answer. So a passage was given and you were asked whether it's an expository tone or it's a descriptive tone, and majority of the students were confused between expository and descriptive. And yes, it is very close. So we need to understand the subtle nuances here. तो expository passage क्या हो? एक simple सा mnemonic बता रही हूँ आपको. Something that explains. Expository is something that explains. Simple. Typical example would be any textbook. Any chapter from a textbook is expository in nature because it's explaining a concept. And it's a very common type of writing, of course, right? So you are explaining a concept, you are imparting information, okay? And of course, here the author refrains from sharing his personal opinion. But he would be talking about the standard facts. Okay, he would be giving you evidence. He would be simply trying to explain a concept or a topic. Okay, that's expository style. Now, please remember one thing. Expository can also be called sometimes when it's too much of information given. Not conceptual, but too much of information, then you can say informative. When there is, there can be various numerous offshoots of this with slight variations here and there. Okay, so just trying to tell you, there are too many facts given. It can also be called factual. But remember that, especially when I say factual, a factual style would essentially mean that the author is sharing a lot of facts and his opinions are nowhere in the picture. Informative also means he's trying to give you a lot of information about something. Okay, chaliye. So some typical examples of expository writing. Your textbooks or how-to articles, right? How to do this, how to do that, right? How to write a thesis. So it's going to explain you the entire process. Okay, how to apply for an internship, whatever the topic be. Even your recipes actually, because they tell you stepwise instructions of how are you supposed to do something. In fact, technical writing or scientific writing, even business writing, essentially, which is trying to explain you about a concept, is expository in nature. Okay, I hope it is clear. Let's move over to the next. And we will have sample questions to reinforce everything that we learned. Okay, descriptive. Not an issue, Swapnil. You are slightly late. Not an issue. Okay, yes, all of you out there. Good evening once again. Chaliye. Descriptive writing. Now, descriptive is often confused with expository, and yes, descriptive mostly is in fiction. Okay, when you are describing something, you're describing things as they are, and you're describing them in detail. Okay, so if it's in fiction, you will not get confused with the expository style. But if it's in non-fiction, non-fiction में भी आ सकता है, तब थोड़ा सा पंगा हो सकता है. Okay, don't worry. With a common example, I'm going to distinguish between the different styles once again. So as I've already told you, when an author writes in a descriptive style, they are painting a picture of the person, place, or thing in a great detail. Remember, detailing बहुत ज़्यादा होती है. Language पे ध्यान दीजिएगा. बहुत ज़्यादा picture आपके सामने paint किया जा रहा है. Okay. And they normally use a lot of adjectives or adverbs and metaphors to paint the picture in the reader's mind. But here, the author is not trying to explain you a heavy concept, nor is he trying to convince you about something, nor is he sharing any of his, matlab, opinion aa sakti hai. But as such, he's not convincing or persuading you. All right? So that is descriptive for you. And descriptive often, jaise aap dekh rahe honge, when we talk about some novels, it's very, very prevalent in novels or plays when they are describing a particular scene. Imagine a murder scene in one of the John Grisham's novels or David Baldaki's novels, and there's a murder scene that's very gory and a very ghastly account of the murder. So the way they describe all the subtleties, just tarah se wo ek nuance aapke samne rakhte hain. That's descriptive. That's scene. Okay. Mostly it's in fiction, as I told you. In non-fiction, if it is, it can be describing a process. As it is, it's just describing. It's not trying to explain you. It's not trying to teach you something. It's just describing. That's it. Okay. We'll do some examples. You'll be able to understand better. Narrative. Before moving to narrative, I would like to take up analytical. Analytical class. Analytical is very common, very popular, and I believe most of us have written analytical essays in our school life. Okay, so whenever you address each and every minute aspect of a topic and you examine it in depth, that is analysis that you're doing. That's an analytical style of writing. And often you address the what of something, the why, where, when, how of a topic. अच्छा ये ऐसा क्यों है? Why is it? What is it actually? Where does it come from? How is it done? When was it done first? So all those kind of questions are often addressed. One important thing here is logical conclusions are made on the basis of facts and evidences. It's very logical. Analytical passage is extremely logical. They would be often making conclusions on the basis of data. Data इसमें भी होगा, but इसमें analysis बहुत ज़्यादा हो रहा है. ठीक है? Sometimes prediction can be made. Okay. Sometimes prediction can be made on the basis of some facts. Sometimes you can see that the author is exploring a cause and effect relationship, or maybe it's talking about the pros and cons or the merits and demerits of something. Somewhere they can be doing a compare and contrast thing. These are the common elements which are often seen in an analytical passage or analytical style. We can even say analytical tone, descriptive tone. So as I've told you, these words are used interchangeably, but as you can see, because a tone conveys the emotion or the attitude of the author towards the subject of the passage. But style is about how he has laid down the passage. How has he written it? And since there is a connection and an overlapping, is inevitable sometimes. Chaliye. Here, the author is mostly neutral. Fine, he's mostly neutral. And examples can be most of the essays and articles you see. They are analytical in nature, most of them. Okay, so I hope it is clear. अच्छा अली, मैं आपको अगर कंफ्यूजन हो रहा है ना, एक काम करेंगे, मैं एक कॉमन एग्जाम्पल लूंगी और सारे स्टाइल्स को उसी एग्जाम्पल के थ्रू समझाऊंगी. ठीक है? यस अंशुल, आई विल डू दैट. डिस्क्रिप्टिव, स्वेच्छा, डिस्क्रिप्टिव एंड एक्सपोजिटरी में बहुत फर्क है. डिस्क्रिप्टिव में ऑथर ज्यादातर सिर्फ चीजों को डिस्क्राइब कर रहा है कि ये ऐसा है, वो वैसा है. मोस्टली ये फिक्शन में होता है, नॉवेल्स में, स्टोरीज में होता है. इज दिस मच क्लियर? Whereas expository is just like your textbook, a chapter in your book which is trying to explain you a concept, which is trying to teach you something. Is this clear? Tanish, analytical is mostly objective, but sometimes on the basis, like there can be some minute elements where the author is expressing his opinion, but mostly it is neutral. So I would rather club it in the objective category. And no argument, Ishita, argumentative and analytical में बहुत फर्क है. Argumentative में, see, in argumentative passage, the author is talking specifically about his viewpoint and he's trying to prove that he's right. Ishita, is it clear? He has an opinion. मेरा opinion ये है that cell phones should be banned in all centers of learning. So even in colleges, even in coachings, everywhere cell phones should be banned. Okay, so I am trying my best to prove you that, my viewpoint is correct. And so I am giving you reasons to support it. I am providing arguments. I might also consider my critics who say that no, cell phones, they are very important. They are indispensable these days. So I may also take their arguments and then I may rebut them or challenge them. Because मेरे को तो जीतना है ना, जैसे debate होता है ना, for the topic, against the topic, तो argumentative बहुत अलग है. ठीक है? And yes, class, थोड़ा सा confuse होना लाजमी है, considering that, in some situations they might slightly tend to be confusing or difficult, but with examples everything will be clear. And class, of course, my regular classes are there for you, so you don't have to worry. All you LPTians out there, don't worry, I'll take it up in great depth and in great detail. 5-6 classes करेंगे हम टोन्स पे, टेंशन वाली कोई बात. ठीक है? Okay. Finally, critical or evaluative. अब एक चीज समझो, what happens in critical? Critical के दो मीनिंग निकल के आते हैं. One is often a fault finding kind of an attitude of the author. ठीक है? It's negative, very negative. For example, I say is very critical of the way the government has handled the COVID crisis. So you're very negative about it, that you feel that they didn't do a good job. So critical ब्रॉडली एंड मोस्टली इसी वे में लिया जाता है कि फॉल्ट फाइंडिंग कर रहे हो आप, यू ट्राइंग टू फाइंड फॉल्ट्स, ठीक है। लेकिन as we say a critical evaluation, as we say a critique of something, उस चीज को ध्यान में रखिए that sometimes critical is evaluative in nature. You must have seen in the movie awards, you have the critics award, jury's award. They're critically examining everything. So when you're critically examining, this is where critical gets very close to analytical. लेकिन जैसा मैं आपसे बोल रही हूँ, number one, there are some situations where the passage can have dead close choices. The examiner will not give you such choices. Trust me. अगर choices बहुत close है, वो तब भी देगा आपको जब justifiable है वो, वरना तो वो बहुत confusing हो जाता है. So mostly critical is evaluative in nature. You are trying to evaluate the aspects of something and you highlight the positives and negatives of it. The sole purpose of your writing is this. ये चीज हुई, क्या ये अच्छी हुई, इसमें ऐसी कमी रह गई, इसमें ये अच्छाई थी, ये बुराई थी. That's it. That's critical. You're trying to evaluate. But often, in reality, आप जब भी देखोगे, wherever passages of critical nature turn up, most of them are actually fault finding. Most of them, after an analysis, of course, but they come up with the negatives of it. While an analytical passage may have the what of it and the why of it, and it may pick up any aspect of it. The critical essentially is about, evaluating the performance of something. For example, a very common thing, any review you take up is critical in nature. Any review. When you're reviewing something, was it good? Was it bad? Whether it's a book review or whether it was about any measure that was taken. Do you understand? Anshul, yes, in argumentative, the author, of course, gives facts. Of course. Without facts, though, it can also be some logical opinions, but they are mostly fact-driven. They might not be hard, concrete facts, but they might be logical reasons behind something. Is this much clear? Chaliye, अब finally, हम narrative पे आते हैं, जो last style है, and then we will do a question. Narrative is very easy to spot. Narrative is like a story. ठीक है, narrative is just and purely like a story. एक किस्सा. Now, this is mostly in the first person. For example, मैं आपको अपना first interview, job interview का किस्सा सुनाऊं. Okay, so it can be an anecdote. It can be a first person narrative. It can also be a third person narrative. जरूरी नहीं है ये first person ही होगा. So even if it's a biography, it can be narrative because you are telling the entire story of a person. An autobiography, of course, would be narrative. So, जब आप sequential order में बता रहे हो about all the events, this happened and that happened, and mostly in the form of a story, you are narrating some events or personal experiences. That is narrative style. Very common. ये सारे styles, the ones that I'm discussing, are very common and they're very important. Here, they are not just trying to impart information, they're actually communicating a story. There are characters, there might be settings, so they're telling about that. So even when you talk about history, you are telling, about the World War. So if you are telling one particular aspect of it where a number of people are involved, like a story, like an incident, सबसे ज़्यादा इसका अच्छा example होगा your typical novels, your short stories, your anecdotes. Got it? So this is anything about a story. I think this is very simple. In fact, it's the easiest to spot. See, Ishita, regarding your query, it happens that there might be some elements of tone. See, very important point Ishita has asked. In fact, I would like to discuss this. Sometimes you feel that there are different tones in different paragraphs of the passage. And the question can either ask you the tone of the entire passage. Sometimes they may ask you the tone of a particular portion of the passage. The tone in second para. They might even ask you the tone of a particular sentence. So if you are asked the tone of the entire passage, class, please, ये चीज समझो कि जब पूरे passage का tone वो आपसे पूछ रहे हैं, you will find out the most dominant tone. सबसे ज्यादा overpowering tone जो आपको समझ में आएगी, आप उसको spot करो. So finally, for all of you, as a reinforcement, I'll take the common topic economy. ठीक है. And then the sare styles samjhaungi through that. So this is very important. My last resort through which, I can try to tell you the different styles. I'll try exemplifying them. Economy par analytical passage agar main likhungi to main, I might take up any macro or micro indicators or any issue of the economy, and I try to analyze why is it like that. Okay, why has the GDP gone low? What can be done to overcome it? What are the prospects? So I see something in the economy, in the current economic scenario, and I try figuring out why is it so, what led to it, what's going to be the outcome, what are going to be the effects, and what should be done. So such a passage is analytical in nature. Narrative, okay, sometimes some topics are just not suitable for some styles. But yes, narrative, I can say, see the governor of RBI trying to narrate an incident, that how he ushered a particular policy change to bring about a positive change in the economy. So it's his personal incident that he's narrating. Or I tell you about, the finance minister. Say I tell you about Manmohan Singh, his tenure as a finance minister, and how he ushered in the LPG policy way back in the 1990s, when India was going through a major crisis. So that was going to be narrative, क्योंकि story form में मैं बता रही हूँ. Argumentative would be I come up with a viewpoint that a particular step should be taken, and then I give you reasons as to why. For example, I'm talking about, I'm concerned about the fiscal deficit, and I say, or I tell you that, something with regard to the bank rates should be done. Why should it be done? I am trying to focus on that. I'm giving you reasons supporting that. That's going to be argumentative. Descriptive, I simply tell you the picture of the Indian economy right now. Just tell you facts and figures about it. Just describe the current status of Indian economy as it is right now. That's descriptive. Expository, I tell you what Indian economy is like. I tell you what are the different, what's the different aspects of the Indian economy. I try explaining you how it works. I tell you the role of the RBI. I tell you about, the different banks, the fiscal and the monetary policies. I try explaining you what is the fiscal policy, what is the monetary policy. I do explain you how the economy works. So that's expository. Critical, any move by the government with regard to economy. How the economy has deteriorated in the past 2 years or so, or 2 to 3 years. So I am critical of the way the government has handled the economy, and I believe not much has been done in this regard. So I am finding out the faults with the government. That's it. So I believe it was a good enough. I think I tried my best to explain you the different styles. Let's practice here. There is a passage in front of you. Quickly go through it and identify the style. Yes, Ishita, most editorials, yes. Most of them are argumentative. Some can be analytical also. Class will have to quickly go through it because I'm running out of time. Waiting for your answers. Okay, so getting your answers. Chaliye, theek hai. So let's discuss. What is this passage about? The first paragraph is telling you the people's perception. Some people's perception about libraries. They think that online learning is becoming very rampant. And so everything should be digitalized. At least what they mean is the public libraries should be shut down. And everyone should be given an iPad with an e-reader subscription. Then what is happening here? Try to understand the structure and the idea flow. Mind mapping, har jagah karni hai. Okay, if you have not seen mind mapping, you don't know mind mapping, watch my video on mind mapping. Okay, this says that these are the counter arguments actually that he's listing. Proponents of this idea state that इससे क्या होगा, पैसा बचेगा, क्या करने से library shut करने से. तो यहाँ पे the author has actually first told you about a view. Fine. Then he says, what are the arguments that they provide to support this view? But finally, the author mentions his personal view, which is contradictory to the view presented. ये लोग जो कह रहे हैं कि libraries should be shut down, what are the reasons? They're saying firstly it will save money because libraries are expensive. Okay, and it also says that people have to travel to libraries, so if they have a subscription and an iPad, they can do it comfortably in the confines of their home. But now look at the author's stance. As I say, words like however, they are mostly contrasting words. So however करके author ये बता रहा है, it would be a serious mistake to replace libraries with tablets. ये author का main point है, something that the author believes in. It's a stance, it's its opinion. And now he's giving you reasons why. So now he's providing arguments in support of the libraries, physical libraries. He says that पहली बात है कि digital books जो हैं, they don't provide you much learning. They are associated with less learning and more problems as compared to the printed ones. Secondly, he says that staring too long at the screen can be quite a problem for your health. It can lead to health problems. And finally, he says it's narrow-minded to think that libraries, the only job is lending books. In fact, they have many other benefits. तो यहाँ पे चल क्या रहा है? यहाँ पर एक चीज को लेके there's an opinion whether libraries should be shut or not. Almost looks like a debate to me. Fine, and both the views are being presented, and finally author is asserting that his viewpoint is correct and he's providing logical reasons supporting his argument. So don't you think so? It is argumentative. Yes, it's absolutely argumentative in nature. समझ आ गया? What about expository? बिल्कुल भी नहीं. It's not explaining you something. आपको कुछ सिखा नहीं रहा, कुछ पढ़ा नहीं रहा. Descriptive, no, it's not just describing it. The only thing which you could be thinking about is analytical. लेकिन यहाँ पर पूरा का पूरा focus है अपना point prove करना. Author convince कर रहा है आपको कि library होनी चाहिए. Convincing tone आती है. Analytical में convincing वाली कोई बात नहीं होती. It's not persuasive in nature. Argumentative is very persuasive in nature. That's how you can decide whenever you get confused. Class, is this much clear? Sweksha, Tanish, Komal, Saumya, Ishita, Michelle, Sai, is this clear? Anshul, Vishesh, all of you, Rishit, Aarti, chaliye. Up clear hai na? Perfect. So that was styles for you, and I wanted to do a lot more, but time is not permitting to do that. But in a nutshell, I would just like to tell you one thing regarding the tone and what lies ahead. Some common tones जो हम आज नहीं कर पाएंगे, I would like to rather do it in my next class because it's already time, and some amazing practice questions for you. बस इतना बताते हुए जाऊंगी, क्लियर करते हुए जाऊंगी कि टोन्स क्या होती है, ऑथर का सेंटिमेंट, ऑथर का एटीट्यूड टुवर्ड्स द सब्जेक्ट, that is reflected in the tone. So tone can have any emotion, a wide range of emotions it can display. We shall be talking about tones in detail in my next video. So you have to turn up to my next video. All right. Chaliye. With this, I would like to call it a day. Thank you so much. If you have any queries, you can ask me. In my next class, I'll also take up an additional question on styles and we'll move over to tones. All right, class. Thank you so much. That's all for today. Bye. Take care.